Welcome to Math with MayBell. Today we're going to review our rules to rounding. We made a poster together to put the rules for rounding in 4 steps. So let's review those steps. Number 1, locate the place you are rounding to. Number 2, look next door. Number 3, if the neighbor is 5 or more, add 1 more. 4 or less, let it rest. And then finally, step 4, anything to the left stays the same, anything to the right becomes 0. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a few examples together, but the first step that we need to do before we even look at the rules is see what our task says. Round to the nearest thousand. So we have 5,387 and 851. Now let's go to our rules. We're going to round 5,387 first. Locate the place you are rounding to. Well, in the task, it told us to round to the nearest thousand. So let's find our thousands place. Ones, tens, hundreds, thousands. I always like to put a little dot above the place I'm rounding to so that I do not lose touch with that place value. Number 2, look next door. If I look next door, I see the neighbor 3. If the neighbor is 5 or more, add 1 more. If it's 4 or less, we're going to let it rest. Since 3 is less than 4, we're going to let that 5 rest. Anything to the left? Well, there isn't anything to the left, but if there were numbers to the left, we would just keep them the same. Anything to the right becomes zeros. So 387 becomes zeros. 5,387 rounds to 5,000. Next, the next example, 851. Step 1, locate the place you are rounding to. Ones, tens, hundreds, thousands. Well, there's nothing there. I think I hear some of you probably are saying at home, put a 0 in. That's going to be a placeholder. And we can put a 0 there because that place has no value. So the place I'm rounding to is the thousands place. Put my dot in. I'm going to look next door and ask myself, is that neighbor 5 or more? It is. It's 8. So since it's 5 or more, I'm going to add 1 more to the place I'm rounding to. Anything to the left, there's nothing to the left to keep the same. Anything to the right becomes 0. So 851 when rounded is 1,000. We're going to try some decimals in part 2. But before we get to part 2, one thing that I'd like for you to do, either in this post or in your math journals, is to tell me some situations in which you would round numbers. What in real life, what is a situation in which you would need to round numbers? I'm looking forward to some of your responses. Good job in math, MayBell. You got lazy though.